Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host Brittany, and today we are joined by Nia. She is the dog mom to Jordy. Jordy is a wheelie pot hound who is wheelchair bound and paralyzed and living his best life. And so we're going to hear a little bit of Jordy's story today, how they've kind of navigated him being in a wheelchair, and just learning more about that experience. So Nia, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
So Jordy was paralyzed in 2023, right?
Yep, May of 2023.
And so what happened? Can you give us a little bit of that backstory of what happened that day?
Yeah, hindsight's 2020, of course. I woke up, or he woke me up, really around, I think it was like 3 or 4 a.m., just kind of panting, anxious, really not acting like himself. He's typically an anxious boy, so I was like, okay, well, maybe there was, thunder or, a loud noise or something. So I kind of just didn't think about it too much. The only time he's ever woken me up like that before acted kind of weird was when he was like really having, bowel issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, maybe he has to go to the bathroom. So I take him downstairs. I, take him to go to the bathroom. He postures fine. He goes to the bathroom fine. No concerns. We come back in. Again, hindsight's 2020. Hindsight's 2020. I, go to work. He was still, panting, anxious, but I was like, you know what? He'll be fine, just like he always is when I come home.
Right.
And I got home from work, and he normally greets me at the door. We usually go get the mail together, and then we come back inside. And for whatever reason, he didn't meet me at the door. And I was like, well, maybe he was upstairs in my room and locked himself in my room accidentally or something like that. So I was like, again, didn't think anything of it. So I go get the mail, I come back, and just something tells me to look to my left. And he's laying down by our sliding glass door that goes to the outside. And he is not moving. I'm calling him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? He's panting, he's anxious.
Mm-hmm.
So to him, I go to try to pick him up, and he starts screaming. So I was on the phone with my mom, and I was like, I gotta go, I'll call you back.
Right.
So I, gently pick him up, grab my keys, I kind of place him in my car and just drive straight to our local emergency clinic. So, they took him back, and basically they told me that they were concerned for paralysis, of course. He wasn't able to use his hind end. He spent the night overnight at our local ER just for supportive care and pain medications and such. And then I transferred him to a neurologist the next morning, where she did an MRI, and she was concerned for him slipping a disc. She didn't see any disc material in a certain spot in his back. But when she actually went in to do the surgery, she didn't find the missing disc material. But she did just find a bunch of kind of blood clots that were surrounding his cord and compressing his spinal cord. So her best guess is that he did slip a disc, but it just happened to, hit at the right velocity in the right spot at the right time to just cause so much trauma to his cord. I guess, from that, after the surgery, he had a slim chance just because in regards to regaining function of his hind legs, just because there was so much damage to his spinal cord. But she was concerned after a couple of days of something called myomalacia, which is basically spinal cord death. What can happen is it can ascend, meaning kind of moving up towards the upper half of his body, and eventually it could get to the nerves that move his diaphragm, and if that were to happen, his diaphragm wouldn't work and he wouldn't be able to breathe, and we would have had to make the decision to use. Luckily that didn't happen.
Yeah.
She does think he had myomalacia, but it actually descended. So instead of moving upwards, it moved backwards. So he lost his reflexes and such in his hind legs, and that kind of gave us a unfortunate, definite answer that he wasn't necessarily going to regain function.
Hmm. So was there anything prior to that day, like a fall or, he ran into something, a big jump, anything?
Nothing. No, totally normal. I always joked that he had like rubber bones because he could literally run and jump off of anything and be totally fine. And I was always, a nervous wreck. He was a little daredevil in his prime, but no, nothing out of the norm. I mean, like I said, we have stairs in my house, but he goes up and down them. He went up and down
Hmm.
them constantly all the time. It just was never in my mind that could happen. And like I said, it wasn't even, again, hindsight's 2020, but it's not even something that I considered that day when I left for work.
I don't think a lot of people would. I mean, we've all had our dog kind of panting and anxious at least once. And it's like, oh, they must have seen something, heard something, smelled something. So I definitely understand that's the last thing you thought is I would come home and my dog is paralyzed. I think you guys are lucky that you were able to get into a neurologist so quickly, get that MRI, have them kind of take a look. And it sounds like you took all of the right steps. And I know it was not cheap.
It was
I
not.
know so many people who have done MRIs for their dogs, and they're very expensive.
Yeah. I mean, everything, it just the like one night visit at our local emergency clinic was close to upwards of $2,000, just one night. And that was just supportive care. Like they didn't do any diagnostics, really, nothing. And then, yeah, the MRI and surgery and a couple of nights of hospitalization was closer to $10,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys get the diagnosis. He's unable to use his back legs. At what point did you kind of decide on the wheelchair, or how did the wheelchair kind of come about?
Yeah, so well, that was the first thing. My parents wanted to help me, and of course, I was like, no, it's my responsibility, I can take care of it. But they were like, no,
Hmm.
grandma and grandpa are going to get him into a wheelchair. Because
Hmm.
that was the first thing is, if we can get through the 2 weeks post-op with the myomalacia, because the 2 weeks is kind of the, like, out of the woods kind of
Right.
time frame. So we were like, okay, if we can get past the 2 weeks, then, the wheelchair is going to be in our future. And we did go to rehab, and we were going to leave it up to the rehab doctor to kind of give us the A-OK to move forward in getting that wheelchair.
Hmm.
But yeah, grandma and grandpa, that was that was their contribution. They wanted to do something, and he has definitely used it quite a bit. So it was a good
Right.
investment.
So for the wheelchair, do you have advice on like where you got it from, or not even a particular brand, but if someone is looking for a doggy wheelchair, where did you start? Did you guys just start Googling wheelchairs for dogs?
Yeah. So our rehab doctor, she had two brands that she really recommended, which I can name if you'd like me to. But there's other resources online. I think the first thing that I did, just kind of while I was trying to kind of get my thoughts together and try to figure out kind of what our new normal is going to be, is join a bunch of Facebook groups, which sounds kind of silly. But
No, that makes perfect sense.
yeah, but I wanted to, see what other people, have done, what they, recommended, because I know there was going to be a lot of things that I just hadn't ever even thought of before. So I
Right.
just kind of was going on, Facebook groups and whatnot, and there was a specific Facebook group, again, not necessarily that we utilized. There's one for Florida, where we're Florida residents, that they will fit people or get people wheelchairs for their dogs, and kind of share for, ones that have been donated and kind of, whatnot. So there is
Hmm.
options other than just buying a wheelchair. There's a lot of
Hmm.
rescues or a lot of, like I said, social media outlets that you could find a wheelchair for the dog.
Right. So with respect to rehab, what did your rehab consist of? Were you guys doing the underwater treadmill, acupuncture? What kind of things were you guys working on?
Yeah, all all the above. So we definitely did the underwater treadmill. We did acupuncture and electroacupuncture with my good friend. She does do that, so she was able to come and do that actually at my house, which was really helpful and made it really comfortable for him. And we also doing cold laser therapy. We did, passive range of motion. So, making sure we keep those legs moving and whatnot, just
Mm-hmm.
in case there was a chance of,
Right.
sustaining recovery of his hind legs. But yeah, so we tried it all, to be honest with you.
Right.
And we
Is
did it
there
for quite a
rehab?
while too.
Yeah. Is there rehab that you guys still have to do, or like particular things that are recommended now that he's been in his wheelchair for almost 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think for us, I don't really do a whole lot anymore in regards to kind of rehab. I kind of toyed with the fact of, taking him to do the underwater treadmill and whatnot periodically, like once a month or whatnot, not
Hmm.
necessarily for rehab, but to enrichment, to, get him out to do, see a new place. But I think for us financially, it just wasn't going to be feasible if it necessarily wasn't going to provide him anything other than, I guess, enrichment. And we do, of
Yeah, that
course,
makes
get
sense.
other enrichment forms. We'd love to go hiking with our doggy friends. So he
Hmm.
definitely is the leader of the pack in that regard. He's always up front and leading everybody, which, the wheelchair definitely doesn't stop him.
Yeah. So, what were some of the biggest challenges you guys faced in the very beginning of the whole thing?
Yeah, I think for me, mentally, I think it was tough to kind of figure out what this new normal was going to be, not only for him, but for myself. And, in the beginning, he wasn't able to, roam the first floor of my house really by himself. His neurologist was like, keep him confined in a very, small area.
Hmm.
You know, same thing, when I'm gone or when I was away, I had to make sure that he was confined to a small area, which with his anxiety was quite difficult.
Yeah.
So it was a change in that regard. And I think just trying to work my schedule around, whether it be work or, my life, my daily life, my social life, because he isn't able to urinate on his own. So I have to express his bladder 3 to 4 times a day. And
Okay.
again, those are very like routine, like very specific times. So that way I make sure that I'm getting it out for him. So
Hmm.
definitely having to adjust my schedule and again, my social life to try to, make sure I'm home on time or, I can't necessarily go to the gym anymore after work because I had to make sure I came home first to express him and take care of him. And then I would have to try to find the motivation to go back out to the gym.
Yeah. So, and that was all in the beginning. And then do you think you still are there still challenges? Have their challenges changed? Do you have new ones? Like, how does that look now?
Yeah, so I think now we've gotten into such a routine, it's kind of like second nature for us
Right.
that, I know how to work everything around. Our new normal is just our normal now. I think our biggest issue at the moment is he's been battling kind of resistant urinary tract infections, which can be quite common in paralyzed dogs because, of course, like I said, they're not able to urinate on their own, just more common from the urine kind of pooling or sitting, no matter how often you express their bladder. So it's been difficult
Hmm.
to say the least, but it's like nothing's wrong. He's totally fine otherwise. And so for me, it's a battle to try to, see if we can get this cleared up. But it's been kind of our biggest struggle at the moment.
That's something I never would have even thought about or known. I mean, it makes perfect sense. But if you haven't experienced that, I mean, I wouldn't have known that UTIs would be common.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that being difficult and that requiring like a new diet change or supplements. I know there's quite a few supplements on the market. They're all a little bit different. Some work, some don't. And so I'm sure for you guys, it might be a little bit experimental with like what you're trying and what might help.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely, trying new things. The other thing too is he kind of just defecates whenever he wants to. It just comes out.
Right.
So that's also always a struggle too. If he ate something that maybe caused a little bit of diarrhea, because then I'm dealing with diarrhea everywhere, not just a normal dog that would go to the bathroom outside. you clean it up, pick it up, whatever. But now it's like
Hmm.
on him, it's on the floor, it's all over the diaper if he's wearing a diaper at that moment. So, keeping the house and him as clean as possible has always been a struggle as well. So, and as he's, gone on, his urinary sphincter is definitely not as strong either. So he does
Hmm.
leak some urine and whatnot. So we've been battling kind of that, and again, trying to keep him as clean and the house clean, and lots of
Right.
reusable pee pads and lots of
Yeah.
washing things and so on and so forth.
Yeah. On the flip side of all of this, what's been easier than you anticipated? Or what's kind of been that light at the end of the tunnel for you guys? What's kind of been like those glimmers?
Yeah, so I think the light at the end of the tunnel for me is, still seeing him do the things that he liked and loved to do before he was paralyzed. So like I said, he's an outdoors guy. He loves hiking. And we, will do 4, 5, 6 mile hikes with our friends.
Wow.
Yeah, nothing stops him. Like, he's totally fine. So, those are still things, and he gets excited too. We see him be the leader of the pack. Like, he's running to be at the front, and I'm like trying to catch up with him.
Right.
I just got a puppy, so now the two of them are running, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Which I'm sure you could probably hear barking in the background.
Yeah, I can hear him in the
Yeah,
background.
yeah, of course. Now he wants to bark. But yeah, so that's, I think, kind of the biggest thing that has kind of, kept me going is, he's the same exact dog as he was before. We just have a little bit of a different way of getting around,
Right.
a little bit of a different lifestyle than we had originally.
So I found you guys on Instagram,
Yeah,
and Jordy has his own Instagram and he
yeah,
posts his adventures on there. And it was really inspiring. It's just amazing to see because I feel like he's just like living. He's living more than some dogs who
more than me.
have the use of all four of their legs, you know?
Yeah,
So with that, I want to show people that there could be life even if your dog is paralyzed. There's still hope. They can still live that life. And with that, what's some advice or some tips you have for people whose dog maybe becomes paralyzed or not even paralyzed, just maybe having a mobility issue? Like what tips or advice do you have?
yeah. I mean, I think my biggest tip is, let them dictate how they want to live their life, if that makes sense. If
Yeah.
you're going to have a dog that has mobility issues, you definitely need to take that into account. We can't necessarily go upstairs like a normal, dog and human. So we have to, take that into account when we're doing things. We've definitely found our ways. I think, for me, we put him in his wheelchair and he was like totally normal, like normal dog, didn't even know anything was wrong. So I kind of just took that and ran with it because I want to make sure that he's still able to live the life that he wants to live, um, and be able to do all the things that he wants to do. Of course, he does have some limitations. I can't. He has to be in his wheelchair. Like, I can't just let him scoot around outside, or he's going to scratch up his knees or or whatnot.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think the biggest advice I have is, don't let the mobility issue or the wheelchair kind of stop you from doing adventures and such with him. Like I said, he's done so much more. I mean, we went paddleboarding after he was paralyzed, which I never thought he'd ever be able to do in general, let alone with
That's
only
amazing.
working legs to balance. You know, Try it. Just see how they do, and if they, do well and excel, then let them live their life.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that even though, you never expected this, wanted this, but I do think it helped grow that bond. It helped you guys kind of explore like, what can we do together? How can we maybe branch outside of our own comfort zones and try paddleboarding, go hiking, like doing those things. And I think that's so amazing to see. And I think that can be replicated whether you have a dog, whether you have a kid, whatever it might be, but just really helping your just live their life the way they want to live it. And I think that's so inspiring.
And he's definitely given me, gotten me out of my comfort zone too. Like, never was I like brave enough to go paddleboarding with a group of people that I've never met before. But, I wanted to do something for him. I, push myself now to kind of do things. Sorry, my cat's trying to come into the screen. I push myself to, go out and do things, go out on those 5-mile hikes with friends, that I may just want to be sleeping on my couch and taking
Right.
a nap because I want to make sure that he's still able to live the best life. And I almost feel like it pushed me to be more adventurous with him. He was always adventurous, we always like doing things together. But now I feel like we've kind of done more than I would have ever expected.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell everyone Jordy's Instagram handle so that they can follow along with all of his adventures.
Yeah, so it's a little long, so I apologize, but it's at Jordy _the_wheelie_pot_hound, and I can spell that if you need, but
I'll put it in the show notes. And for anyone listening, if you follow us on social media, I will tag Jordy so you guys can also go follow. But Nia, thank you and Jordy for coming on the podcast and just inspiring everyone. I can't wait to share this story.
Yeah, no, we're excited to hear it and to share it as well. So thank you so much again for having us.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.